Just 5 days to go until the federal election, a growing public campaign entitled The Declaration of Biological Truth has received backing by over 5,000 academics, doctors, teachers, mental health professionals and concerned citizens. Following the landmark ruling in the UK where the Supreme Court clarified that the term woman is based on biological sex and not gender identity, the declaration is calling for a legal return to sex-based definitions, specifically the removal of gender identity for the Sex Discrimination Act. Child and adolescent psychiatrist and one of the public signatories to the Declaration of Biological Truth, Dr. Gillian Spencer, is on the line right now. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, what motivated you personally to become involved with the Declaration of Biological Truth after this benchmark decision in the debate out of the UK?
Oh, I signed the declaration well before that. I'm not sure whether people are familiar with my story, but I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist who was working at the Queensland Children's Hospital. And in April 2023, so 2 years ago, I was stood down for raising concerns about the harms to children from gender interventions.
Yep.
I'd been working there at the hospital for about 8 years, and I was seeing an increasing number of traumatised and confused children, adolescents, particularly girls, being put on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, and I could see the harm that it was doing to them. But the Declaration of Biological Truth is broader than the very concerning issue of transitioning children. It also raises concerns about teaching gender ideology in schools, so teaching kids that it's possible to be born in the wrong body. It raises concerns about males participating in female sports. And as you said, it asks for amendments to the Sex Discrimination Act. So they're all really important things that we need to try and push our politicians to change.
Puberty blockers were a real political issue in Queensland. Where are they up to with that issue?
Oh, well, our Queensland government, I'm so proud to be a Queenslander, back on January 28th, they stopped any public health services from prescribing puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, new prescriptions to children with gender distress. And they've ordered an independent inquiry, which is due to be completed by about November. So Queensland is the responsible state, may I say, and they're protecting children, which is wonderful, and I can sleep much easier at night now.
I'll bet you can. Now, look, the Declaration emphasises the legal and medical importance of distinguishing biological sex from gender identity. Now, you work in the space of children and adolescents. How important is that distinction for them?
It's really, really important. This teaching of kids that it's possible to be born in the wrong body really sets the seeds of confusion. And what we see is children that have been through a whole range of experiences that make them feel uncomfortable about growing up to be a man or a woman. And it's really quite varied what those experiences are. It ranges from experiences of abuse or witnessing abuse towards one of their parents. It can be to do with issues like autism, where they feel a permanent sense of disconnection and a lack of belonging, and they're trying to find a way to belong and an explanation as to why they feel so ostracised. So there's all these kids out there, and there is also the element of social contagion where it has been a fashion, who are vulnerable to starting to come to the idea that they might be born in the wrong body. And then this treatment pathway, which does not have any evidence of benefit and has a lot of evidence of harm, offers them a very long-term fantasy solution, much like that miracle face cream that we've all bought when we're feeling terrible about how haggard we're looking.
All right.
It's this solution. You'll feel better if you do this, and then in 2 years' time you do this. And they don't feel better, but they're just strung along. It's a terrible thing to watch. They're strung along all the way into early adulthood. And it's only often after these children have undergone surgery, had both breasts removed, that they realise that actually, no, I don't feel any better, and my body has been really negatively impacted. And this pathway has implications like loss of fertility, lack of sexual function, long-term serious health problems, and obviously the risk of regret and detransition.
You mentioned earlier there the teaching methods in a lot of the schools. How do you get these issues out of the education system? Or do you need to get them out of the education system?
Oh, we need to get it out of the education system. We need to refocus on teaching biological reality. It's really hard because a lot of the teachers themselves have been influenced by this these ideas, and so it comes down to poor parents having to deal with individual teachers, which is often a very hard thing for parents to do because you don't want to negatively impact your child by having the teacher feeling like you're a hate-filled bigot or something, really silly like that. It's got to, I think, come from the education ministers. They've got to make a directive that this cannot be taught in schools. It's not safe to teach kids this ideology in schools.
Now, critics often argue that removing gender identity from anti-discrimination laws could harm transgender individuals. How do you respond to their concerns about the risk?
Oh, well, we've seen overseas, so that's often an argument that transgender activists use. For example, they used it with puberty blockers, saying that if you limit the prescription of them, then people will die by suicide. So it's a constant theme. With the UK example, they stopped puberty blockers in September 2020, and they haven't had an increase in suicide. So it's a very common thing to keep saying, you can't do that because these people's feelings will be hurt or these people will attempt to kill themselves. But what's really important is that people know that there's harm to women particularly and to children from pretending that people can change sex. And so we need to be really clear that if an adult makes the decision to present themselves as the opposite sex, then they can't expect the whole of the community to change in order to accommodate their desire. There needs to be some workable solutions that are developed over time that don't impact on children and women.
Look, we're just days away from the polls now. What sort of progress are you making with the major parties, particularly in your proposed changes to the Sex Discrimination Act?
Oh, it's devastating. We can't really get traction. It's such an important issue, and it seems like both parties aren't prepared to look at it. Unfortunately, we saw with Mark Butler, with the issue, obviously my issue, which is about childhood gender transition, he's taken this approach of kicking the can very far down the road by getting the NH and MRC to develop guidelines over a ridiculously slow time frame of 3 years. There's no reason for it to take so long. So they're both major parties are being extremely avoidant of this issue, this very important issue, and it really upsets me and a lot of people I know.
Yeah, well, you can see the impact it's had in the UK. Can members of the public still be signatories to your declaration?
Yes, so please, I'd love to encourage your listeners to go online, look up the Declaration of Biological Truth, look at the website and look at the statement, and please sign it. And you can sign it privately so that your name doesn't appear online or anywhere else. So don't be scared. I know that a lot of people face employment consequences and social consequences from speaking up against gender ideology. I've learned that personally. But you don't need to be scared to sign it.
Look, just very briefly, as a parent, how do you deal with children who would be in this space at the moment and concerned about being caught in this vortex of not understanding the difference between, we're talking gender identity and biological sex? How do you approach this issue with your children?
Oh, it's really tricky. It depends what age your children are, and really the approach, if you can, is to get in first. So before they get exposed to it through their teachers or extracurricular activities or online, start talking about biological reality, about the sex differences in the body, and how there's no evidence that someone can be born in the wrong body, that your body is what you're meant to be in, because it's the reality. But once you've got kids that are getting sucked into gender ideology, it becomes this incredibly dicey tightrope that a lot of very upset parents are walking to stay connected to their child, gently challenge their child without alienating them, try and change the influences upon their child, restrict their access to online forums, etc. But it becomes really dicey once a child's caught up in the ideology, and I have a lot of sympathy for those parents.
Yeah, of course. Love yourself for who you are and stay there. All right.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a good day.
Dr. Gillian Spencer there, a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and she's one of the signatories of the Declaration of Biological Truth.